بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله الأطهار وأصحاب الأخيار ومن سن بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. Today we're gonna be talking about why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose Surah Al-An'am, the name Al-An'am, cattle, for this chapter. This chapter which is the 6th chapter in the Quran. And it is a chapter which is very long as well, and there is a narration as well that this chapter was revealed in one go. So you imagine that big chapter was revealed in one go to the Prophet ﷺ. More so, there is a chapter saying that the Prophet ﷺ once read the whole Salatul Maghrib with this chapter. So the whole Salatul Maghrib was with this chapter. Obviously, the ulama say that was an exception, and it's not something that imams should do today, because the general advice for imams is to shorten the prayer for the people, as they don't know who is praying behind them. So this surah, on the first glance, if somebody was saying, well, okay, why is it called An'am? Well, yeah, you can look in and you will see that there are references to An'am, to the cattle. And indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala categorizes the cattle into eight, meaning that there's 4 pairs. Of camels and goats and sheep and cows. So someone will say, okay, well, there's a mention for An'am, and think that's the reason why this surah is called An'am. But actually, there's a deeper reason. And the deeper reason for naming the surah An'am, if you look a little bit closer, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in this surah incidences where people who committed shirk, people who associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, used the cattle in a way to make their own laws and to make their own legislation and to change what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed, and they played about with the laws. So on some occasions they would say that these specific cattle were haram, they were prohibited for our wives, but they were halal for us. And if they are dead meat mean dead carcasses, then everybody can share them. In some occasions they say that these cattle are haram, these cattle, they don't mention the name of Allah on it, and so on and so forth. So they use the whole reference of the cattle, and even in Surah Al-Ma'idah we will also see that as well, that the whole reference to the cattle was used in a way to change the laws of Allah, almost like challenging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you read a little bit more in Surah Al-An'am, you'll find that there are many incidences which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this. And in fact, He also references the whole issue about eating and not mentioning the name of Allah on the cattle that you slaughter to make halal. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that some people, even their shayateen, their devils, will whisper to them that, yes, this is fine and etc., and don't worry about it, and so on and so forth. So the whole theme of the surah is about how people go away from the teachings of Allah and the legislations of Allah, and they make their own legislations. In this instance, they use the cattle and the food, if you like, what was to be ingested, as a means for changing the laws, making up their own legislation, innovating in the practices that was once established by the following of the religion of Ibrahim, the monotheism of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and so on. And so that is the kind of theme that the surah is talking about, is that beware of following your desires, beware of following your false gods, to then change the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down, changing what is halal, making what is halal haram, and what is haram halal, because that is a way to shirk, that is a way to association, that is a way which actually can mess up your reality very much, because you are challenging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His domain. Allah's domain is that He is the one who makes halal halal and haram haram, and that's why Allah says in another surah, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ. Do not say, when with your tongues ascribe falsely that this is halal and this is haram لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبِ, you are attributing lies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because when you're saying this is halal, you are in fact, what you are saying is that Allah has declared this as halal. When you're saying this is haram, you're saying Allah has declared that as haram. And if you don't have evidence for this, if it's not based on that what is true, then you are in danger. And I want to add here a principle which the ulama, the majority, and almost it's a unanimous agreement amongst the ulama with regards to meats. There is a fiqh principle which says al-aslu fil luhum al-tahrim, that with regards to meats, the principle is the foundation, if you like, the default position, it is haram. So meats that you find, meat meaning the slaughtered meat, you find, if you do not know what this meat is, then the default position is haram, unless you are established or you know that this is halal, meaning that it follows the certain. We don't want to go into the details of how meat becomes halal, because that's a different topic in itself, but you have to be aware, because unfortunately today, in today's time, there have been people who have made things very easy, that khalas, this is halal, 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 just eat it. People of the book eat this meat from this supermarket, eat. Even sometimes you'll find that from the mockery of some people mock the Muslims, even you'll find things like halal fish. And this is not a joke. There are people who are actually exporting fish to the Gulf countries, and on it they were saying halal fish, or slaughtered in a halal way. And there were animals like chickens, they were also being exported to Muslim countries with the whole neck is still there and it's all intact. There's no slaughtering at all. It must have been either strangled or. So be careful of this as well, and that's an important realization that comes with Surah Al-An'am. Beware of what is halal and what is haram, and do not follow your false desires or gods, which may make you associate things with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.